You ever have one of those weeks when the universe just lines up to test every ounce of patience you thought you had? Well, let me tell you about the Tuesday morning when the president of the HOA came storming down my gravel path in heels sharp enough to pierce a tire, threatening to bulldoze my cabin, sue me out of my socks, and restore dignity to Willowbrook Lake, completely unaware that the man she was screaming at happened to be the county judge and that her precious mansion actually sat on land I owned. Yeah, you heard me right. Grab some coffee, because by the end of this, I promise you'll be rooting for the underdog and maybe shaking your head at just how deep petty power can run in a small American town. It started just after sunrise. I was out on the deck, coffee in hand, watching the sun paint the lake in colors that would make an oil painter jealous. The cabin wasn't much to look at rough cedar, a dock older than some of the residents, but it meant everything to me. My late wife Elena and I poured years of savings and dreams into that place. Her last wish was that I keep it wild and free the way she loved. If I'm honest, every sunrise out there felt like she was still sitting beside me, at least for a minute. That peace shattered with the sound of designer heels crunching gravel. Here comes Zara Winthrop, president of the Willowbrook Shores HOA, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine and straight into a battle. Platinum hair pulled so tight you could bounce a nickel off her forehead, lips painted like she was headed for a war council, trailed by a jittery man in a suit carrying a clipboard. The whole spectacle was almost funny if she hadn't come make my life a living hell. "Excuse me," she calls, voice sharp enough to chill the lake. "Are you the owner of this structure?" She pointed at my cabin like it was roadkill. I just nodded, kept my cool, but you could tell she expected me to roll over. "I'm Marcus Hollenbeck," I said, as even as I could manage. "And you are?" She puffed up, introduced herself, an inspector, a nervous guy named Graves, and informed me that my place was a blight on the community, racking up 17 violations, everything from native plants to a dock extension built before some of her residents were born. I had to hold back a laugh. "Ma'am, this place predates your HOA by decades." But she had her story, and now she had her agenda: demolition within 48 hours, or face fines, legal action, you name it. Here's the twist: she didn't care about community standards or property values. She wanted the land. She all but admitted investors were breathing down her neck, ready to turn Willowbrook into another resort town for rich folks who couldn't tell the difference between a bluegill and a bass. My neighbor Kestrel paddled over, silver ponytail bobbing, the kind of tough old bird who knows every secret in a 5-mile radius. She stepped onto my dock, gave Zara a look you reserve for raccoons in your trash cans, and said, "Marcus's wife bought this fair and square." Zara, ever gracious, dismissed her as quaint and repeated her threat: 48 hours or else. But I wasn't about to blink. "If you want my property, Miss Winthrop, you'll have to take it through proper legal channels." She laughed, cold as ice, and strutted away, but not before promising to make my life miserable. Kestrel sat with me after they left, worry creasing her face. "She's got connections, Marcus. Her husband's on the planning commission. Her brother-in-law is a state senator." I just smiled. "There's something you should know," I started, but before I could finish, blue lights flashed up my drive. Here come the sheriff and a real building inspector. Turns out, Zara wasted no time filing a complaint. Deputy Martinez looked apologetic. "I got to follow up, Marcus. You know how it goes." The inspector, Davidson, walked the property, measuring, checking every inch. 20 minutes later, he reported, "This property is specifically exempt from HOA jurisdiction. Wasn't included in the 2019 incorporation. No violations." Kestrel shot me a knowing look. I shrugged. Sometimes having the right paperwork at the right time is everything. Martinez asked what to tell Zara. "Tell her the truth," I said. "She doesn't have authority here." No sooner had they left than my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You think you're clever, old man? This is just the beginning. Your shack will be gone by Christmas." I showed Kestrel. "That's harassment." I nodded. "Time to tell you who I really am." Her jaw dropped when I told her I was the sitting county judge, the very one who'd be presiding if this ever went to court. "Oh my God, Marcus, she has no idea." 2 days later, a process server dropped off a fat lawsuit injunctions, damages, the works, all backed by the biggest law firm in the state. But that night, Kestrel came over with a folder of her own. Marcus, they've been buying up everything around the lake shell companies, dummy corporations. All of it points to Meridian Development Group. They want to turn Willowbrook into a luxury resort. Your cabin is the last holdout. That's when I dropped my ace. Elena didn't just buy a cabin. She bought mineral and water rights that cover most of the basin. No one develops anything here without my say-so. And there's more. 3 years ago, Meridian's construction runoff created a toxic bloom. Elena was swimming when she had her heart attack. Coroner found microcystin, an algae toxin, in her system. It wasn't just an accident. Meridian's negligence killed her. And now they're back to finish the job. Court day arrived. Zara swept in like a queen, flanked by lawyers. I didn't take a seat at the defense table. I walked up to the bench and put on my robes. Silence fell over the room. Zara's face drained of color as it dawned on her. Morrison, her high-priced attorney, sputtered for recusal, but this was an emergency hearing by her own demand. Let's get to the merits, I said. They threw the book at me, HOA covenants, code violations. I countered every point. Did you know the property was excluded from the HOA? Morrison stammered. I pressed on. Your inspector, Mr. Graves, is Miss Winthrop's cousin and not certified. Would you like to amend your sworn affidavit? Silence. Then I turned to Zara. How much is Meridian paying your family for these acquisitions? Objections flew. Overruled. I laid out Kestrel's research. You're not just trying to clean up the lake. You're facilitating a multi-million-dollar development, and you try to do it through fraud and intimidation. Then I dropped the final bomb. You didn't just pick on a cabin. You picked on the Hollenbeck Family Trust, which owns 60% of the lake, including the land your mansion sits on. Every major development needs our approval, which will never be granted. Morrison paled, including the building where your law firm leases office space. I added, just for good measure. And then, for everyone to hear, I read out the police report linking Meridian's activities to Elena's death and watched Zara sink lower in her chair. You didn't just threaten any property owner. You threatened the judge whose wife died because of your greed, and now you're staring down perjury charges and a federal investigation. The fallout was swift. Zara's legal team worked through the night, digging through county records, only to find out the web was bigger than they imagined. Even Morrison called, voice shaking, asking about irregularities in their own lease. By Friday, Zara was desperate, tried to call me directly. All communication goes through your attorney now, I said. Careful on those morning walks, Judge, she hissed, thinking she still had power. That's when Kestrel connected the last dot. Zara's maiden name was Meridian. She was the company. The very family whose negligence poisoned my wife was now trying to bully me off my own land. Enough was enough. By that afternoon, federal agents swarmed Willowbrook, collecting evidence. When Zara rolled up with her senator brother-in-law and 2 goons, thinking they'd pressure me into settling, Agent Shun from the EPA stepped out with a warrant. Within minutes, the senator and his enforcers were in cuffs, and Zara's look of triumph turned to pure panic. You think this is over? She spat as agents led her away. My family's been building this empire for 50 years. I leaned in just enough, so only she could hear. Empires built on poison always collapse, Zara. And sometimes the lake gets the last word. Now, folks, I'll leave it there, but let me ask you, when the people in power break the rules, threaten lives, and poison what's sacred, what should justice look like? Drop your thoughts below. Have you ever seen an HOA or developer try something shady in your town? Let's talk about who really gets to decide what's right and who's left cleaning up after the powerful finally fall.